Welcome back to At Home with the Dogganses.
Why, hello, friends.
And welcome to the final episode of 2020. 2022, what year is it?
1847, I don't know.
I don't know. The final episode of this current year. And it is time once again for the, as annual as we've been able to make it, theme park holiday report.
Indeed.
But we'll start with Knott's Merry Farm, where I've been spending a lot of on-the-clock time and only a little bit of, like, actual time as a guest. And you also spent a little bit of time as a guest there during some of my on-the-clock time.
Yeah. I admit that, like, my appreciation from theme parks has come from my husband more than my own personal joy. But I also have really bad ADD, and if I don't keep moving, I die. So, and Knott's, let's be real, is a very easy park to run through very fast. So,
Knott's is a good, chill park to spend a little bit of time in, and they tend to do Christmas pretty well. They've got all the things you're supposed to have at Christmas. They've got food. They've got shows. I guess they don't really have, like, ride overlays, but they got decor.
They tried their best, bless them.
So we'll start with the part that affects my employment. Whittles got moved back to the lane again.
I'm so sorry.
It's been actually fun.
Okay.
Now, because...
I'm proud of you.
So the lane, I've discussed it in previous reports. Gold Mine Trail, which is also called Gingerbread Lane or Candy Cane Lane, depending on what sign you're looking at, but is also still called Gold Mine Trail. But also, if you order from the food cart and you look at your receipt, there's a very outdated word, a camp for a slur for Romani people that the park way back in the day had a land named after. And it's like, there is zero reason for that to still be on the receipt, Knott's Berry Farm.
That is an easy coding issue right there to clear up, just saying.
I'm guessing just the system is still from
1942.
Yeah, exactly. But that is something they should get on.
Yeah, seriously.
Oh, yeah, standard disclaimer. The opinions expressed here do not reflect the opinions of my employer, blah, 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 blah.
Congratulations. You now get to do the same thing that Charlie has to do every fucking video.
Yeah. I think you called that out when we did the Scary Farm report.
I did, yes. And I will continue doing so because I have the memory of a goldfish.
You know, in the first year of this podcast, I remembered everything we said in every episode.
I know.
This is the third year of this podcast coming to a close, and I'm pretty sure I told the same story 8 times this year. But other things down at the end of the lane, there is a game there called Santa Whittles, where it is this sort of, it's a beanbag toss thing, but it's basically you're supposed to knock down the little cardboard or plywood flames to put out the fire in the fireplace as Whittles, as Santa is coming down the chimney. And you have to knock them all out before Whittles gets down to the bottom. And sometimes Whittles will be cheering kids on as they are playing this beanbag toss game. Sometimes Whittles will try it himself. And Whittles' vision is not what it used to be, as we all know.
Oh, of course.
Whittles is not always great at saving himself from the fire. But the thing that caught me by surprise, like when I was over by Berry Tales working over there, is I found out we have one of those fake janitor shows now.
Sure.
Like Universal Studios does this all the time. These shows where it's like a bunch of fake janitors roll up, but then they're like banging on the trash cans and stuff, and they're basically doing a really low rent stomp. We have one of those at Knott's now, too.
Fun.
And there was a day I was not hosting Moxie Coyote, but a colleague of mine was, and apparently the fake janitor show kept showing up right in front of Moxie's meet and greet and like doing the show while Moxie is there. And Moxie is just like, I don't know what to do because I've got a line, but now there's a show here. And it's like, I don't want to like interrupt the show, but like, do I just dance along? It's not like when the melodeon comes through and like Boys and Or the Pups can just like dance to the piano, but it was just like, this is a whole ass production that is clearly like choreographed on some level. And they do like crowd work. They like have, kids in the audience bang on pots and pans or whatever. But it's just like, did you have to park right in front of like the Berry Tales characters are currently not allowed wanted to leave their
Wild.
photo op. So it's
Yeah.
like the fake janitors could go anywhere. But anyway, I always think of the fake janitor shows as being a very Universal Studios thing, and now it's a Knott's Berry Farm thing too.
Sure.
Universal also still has a fake janitor show.
Of course.
Last I was there, but we'll get to Universal later. The big new show this year is the new Ice Show. Because this year is, I believe, the 40th anniversary of them doing ice shows. I think that's the number of them doing specifically Snoopy on Ice for Christmas. So the new ice show is Snoopy's Night Before Christmas. But yeah, the Snoopy Ice Show it's an essential tradition at Knott's Berry Farm. It's the reason, like they reached out to Charles Schultz, hey, we want Snoopy in the ice show. And Schultz was like, can my daughter be in it? And, and that began the relationship between Schultz and Knott's. And I have a coworker in the characters department who has been in this department since then. Like, she's been here that long.
Yeah.
Because she worked that original show, she is still friends with Jill Schultz.
That is wild.
It's very cool.
So if you want to know any of the hot Snoop goss, you have to go to her specifically.
Exactly. So we had seen, like, for several years, it was just called Merry Christmas Snoopy, and we saw it a couple of years, and like, it didn't really change from year to year. I think basically since I moved here.
Yeah.
Anyway, the old ice show was fine. Except for the weird part with the real fetishy reindeer costumes.
Yeah. Sexy reindeer man. No.
Those are gone.
How many people did Knott's awaken with that show over the years because of them costumes?
Here's the thing. I'm not kink shaming. I just really don't want it in the same show as Snoopy.
Yeah, no, it's fair.
I do not want, like...
It's like, how Apple does not ever want their phones to be in the hands of the villains? Like,
yeah, exactly. I do not want Snoopy
to be around by such smut.
But the big thing about the new ice show is now there's like these huge digital screens on the stage. There's like a big digital backdrop, sort of like the Frozen at the Hyperion digital backdrop. And there's like these like sort of like bubbles on the proscenium that are like, video screens, and like stuff happens in the bubbles. So like before the show starts, on the little bubbles on the proscenium, like Woodstock will pop up in them, and it's cute. And, every like 5 minutes or so, starting at 15 minutes before, on the little side screen bubbles, Charlie Brown and his friends show up to like explain the history of Snoopy ice shows at Christmas at Knott's Berry Farm.
Fun.
And like the history of like why skating is like part of the Peanuts lore, and, how ice skating is, big in the Schultz family. So the show starts, and it starts with like the doghouse ushering on stage, and Snoopy's, sleeping on it, and Charlie Brown is in like a nightshirt version of his striped shirt, which is actually pretty funny. And he's like, 'twas the night before Christmas when all through the town, not a beagle was stirring, not making a sound. And then Snoopy starts stirring, and Charlie Brown says, good grief. And then I'm not sure if the show is supposed to be that Snoopy is dreaming or what's going on, but like it's basically the same format as any of the old ice shows. It's a bunch of skating routines and little Peanut skits, and they don't really congeal into a cohesive whole, but the skating's impressive. Like there's a routine where the skaters are wearing these weird like lawn gnome costumes. Yeah. But there are others where it's just like classy Christmas in the cabin, and they're, snazzed out in like Bing Crosby Christmas costumes. And there's some routines where there's like aerial twirling with the skaters, which is, always impressive.
Indeed.
But yeah, most importantly, they don't have those fetishy reindeer costumes anymore. But then over at Wilderness Dance Hall in Santa's Christmas Cabin, the only other holiday food I've had so far, they've got what are called Noel's Stuffed Waffles.
Okay.
So the flavors listed were Rudolph's Peanut Butter Banana and Fire Honey.
Okay.
Dasher's Nutella and Strawberry.
Oh my.
And the one I had to go with for this first time, Cupid's Pumpkin Ice Cream Cookie Butter Pecans and Maple Syrup.
Oh, good Lord, that sounds fantastic.
They all sounded good, but I had to go with the pumpkin ice cream and cookie butter. Had to have it. So it was basically like a big ice cream sandwich between two Eggo-sized waffles, but with like cookie butter on top and stuff. It was fucking delicious. It was so fucking good.
I'm now wondering, it's like, I think pumpkin ice cream season is over at Trader Joe's, but like they always have those cookie butter
Yeah.
things. Maybe we should try it sometime.
I will probably have the other stuffed waffles before Merry Farm is over. We shall see. But yeah, that is all I have to report at Knott's Merry Farm so far, because again, most of my time at Knott's is standing next to a character or doing the other things I do at my job.
Fair. I saw a lot of pretty decor there.
Yeah, that was, you were pretty much just vibing.
Yeah.
Well, the one thing we did do together for holiday is we did do at the Peanuts at the Camp Snoopy meet and greet. We did the mistletoe testing.
We did, and we 10 out of 10. We really, really rocked it.
Yes,
highest
indeed.
grades I've gotten since college.
So now Universal Studios Hollywood. I've been to twice this season, plus like in between them I went to City Walk for a little bit. Okay, we'll start with food here because I've talked before about how Universal doesn't really do holiday food, or at least they don't.
Food.
Or, I mean, or at the very least, they don't do it in a way that they don't make it a thing and they don't like advertise it well. They've got like holiday pastries and drinks for Grinchmas, but not like a holiday food festival like some of the other parks do. The one place that I found in the park, other than the Grinchmas stuff in the courtyard, the one place I found that was going all in on holiday food was Mel's Diner. And I couldn't tell if it was because Universal or because Mel's, because I still do not know how much connection the Mel's in the park has to the actual Mel's chain in the real world. I have never been to a real Mel's drive-in.
Yeah.
I could. Like, there's one, in Hollywood. There's one in Santa Monica, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, we've driven past it before.
There might even be one in Long Beach. Like they're around. I could go to a real one and see how it compares to the one in the park, but I do not know. I don't know. The holiday thing I did get at Mel's was the holiday popcorn chicken and waffle because, I really like the chicken and waffle sandwich at Springfield, so why not? Well, I'll tell you why not. I think it's false advertising to call this popcorn chicken. It was like weird, tough, stringy chicken tenders in like a very bizarre shape. Kind of in like the shape of those like film strip fries that they have at Award Wieners or used to have at Award Wieners. But it was like chicken. They were covered in like cranberry sauce. And then there was just like one crispy waffle way at the bottom soaking in gravy. And then just like cold fries surrounding them.
That just sounds like a texture nightmare to me.
I was not a fan.
There.
I was not a fan of this. And here's the thing. If they hadn't specifically called it popcorn chicken and waffles,
There.
I would have been like, okay, this is a weird shape for chicken to be in. But because I was specifically expecting popcorn chicken, I was like, this is the wrong shape for this chicken to be in. I should have just gone with one of the other holiday items, which were like bread bowls full of soup.
Yeah.
So the other things I had were expensive drinks, as I mentioned. You may recall in last year's holiday report, which I recently released to the public on the YouTube channel, I had a gingerbread hot chocolate at Grinchmas that just tasted like watery instant hot chocolate. So I had that last year. So I was like, I'm not going to make that mistake again. Or am I? Because this year I saw they had s'mores hot chocolate.
Oh, baby.
And you know that I can't say no to anything s'mores flavored.
Fair, neither can I, so.
When I say... So I had the s'mores hot chocolate. It tasted exactly like the gingerbread hot chocolate last year.
At all.
The one difference...
Ladies and gentlemen, he has pulled out his notes. He is ready and prepared.
I'm pulling out an image that I have to show you.
Oh, God.
Maybe it was like a faint graham cracker flavor instead of the fake gingerbread flavor, but it tasted like the same instant hot chocolate with almost a flavor in it. The one thing it had was just a big floating marshmallow that's like a third coated in chocolate. I will post the picture of this marshmallow. Here's the thing.
Oh, my God.
A marshmallow alone does not a s'mores hot chocolate make.
No.
Regular hot chocolate frequently has marshmallows.
Yes, indeedy.
And coating part of it in chocolate, the thing is already chocolate.
Yeah.
The graham cracker and the marshmallow together is what is needed.
It's like Universal. You don't need to hire that dude on TikTok that makes those like chocolate lions and stuff like that to up your hot chocolate game. Hire Dave. He used to do hot chocolates. He could probably make something 1,000 times better than this.
They also had like alcoholic drinks. They had like Christmas cocktails and stuff, and those are probably better, but I don't like alcohol.
Yeah, and I mean, we did, I think, like one boozy drink at Disney last year, I feel.
Yeah, and
it was kind of gross, to be honest. Like,
yeah. I think we had one that I was like, I would like this if it weren't for the alcohol. But
I am going to take a hard stance here, which is like I hate fun alcohol, namely fun holiday seasonal alcohol, because I feel like it's just an excuse for bartenders to do worse. You should always be trying to up your drink game, not go down to the common fucking denominator. And like I feel like the theme park booze drinks really are especially egregious for this, because like it's like you either get no taste of booze but you get the headache, or it's just pure burnt alcohol and no other flavor to it.
Onto the Grinchmas itself. Another thing I had never done before was actually watch the Grinchmas entertainment, at least on this coast. I watched the Grinchmas stage show in Orlando when I lived there, but I had never watched any of the like shows they do for Grinchmas here. I had, walked around the Universal Plaza when it was up for Grinchmas and interacted with the Who characters and seen the Grinch meeting and greeting and seen the decor. I always appreciated the effort put into Grinchmas, even if it is really hilarious that it's based on the Ron Howard movie of all things.
Yeah.
But yeah, between this and Shrek, Universal has always gone all in on deeply mean-spirited films based on children's books starring ugly green protagonists that our generation is way more nostalgic for than the films deserve.
That are often usually coded as Jewish, too.
Yeah, or I don't think the Jewish coding in The Grinch is deliberate, but there's certainly that read.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, Shrek is actually a Jewish thing, too. Though,
Shrek, yes.
Yes.
Yes. Carly Wiesel has made it clear to me. And I appreciate Shrek more listening to her episodes about Shrek.
Yeah.
I still don't like the movie.
No, it's like fair, but it's like you don't have to like the thing to understand like the joy it has brought to the people.
I appreciate that cultural angle on it, even if I just can't get past the fact that the film just exists because Katzenberg is petty about Michael Eisner.
You know what? Worse things have been made. Like for worse reasons. So,
in fairness, my entire internet video career kind of stems from being bitter, being petty about Michael Eisner's decisions.
I love the fact that you've made yourself the Jeffrey Katzenberg of this podcast, basically. Like,
this episode is not a quick bite at all. The big show that they do at night is the tree lighting ceremony, and this draws much more heavily from the movie than from the book.
I'm not surprised.
It's a lot of beats and lines from the unpleasant movie that everyone's nostalgic for, but all like remixed out of order, and it is peculiar.
Oh man, I just remembered that Anthony Hopkins is the narrator of that.
He is, and I think it's somebody doing their best Anthony Hopkins in a pre-recorded narration.
That is buck wild, man.
But beforehand. See,
I'd like to imagine they actually got Anthony Hopkins back, but it was like during that weird Academy Awards when he won for the father. They like grabbed him for 10 minutes off the Zoom link just to kind of like do that and just call it good to go.
See, it's funny because wandering very close to where the Grinchmas area is are the Frankenstein monster and the bride. And it's funny because the Grinch and the Monster of Frankenstein share an actor because Boris Karloff was the voice in the Chuck Jones animated Grinch.
They really should have them play together, at least like at one point.
They should. I think they can't really let the Grinch roam just because the line to meet him is so fucking long.
I imagine, yes.
But yeah, they should have, if they had him like the way the monsters will interact with the Scooby-Doo gang sometimes, like that's always fun to witness. Side note, another animated Grinch voice from the Halloween is Grinch Night special was another Dr. Seuss villain that we've talked about before, Hans Conried.
Yes.
That we've covered on this podcast before.
Favorite. I love you, Hansi.
Was Dr. T the first Criterion episode?
I think it may have been, yeah. I love Hans Conried so much.
Me
He's
too.
the only reason I find the cat who flew to Mars like even tolerable.
The cat from outer space.
There we go.
He barely did anything in it.
I know, that's why I find it tolerable.
Not a lot of Hans Conried characters at Universal Hollywood, if you don't count the Grinch. One Hans Conried character at Universal Orlando, and that is Snidely Whiplash.
Hell yeah.
But of course, he's voiced by Corey Burton in the ride.
Of course. Who does Corey Burton not voice?
Me.
Okay. You just look like him, though.
Maybe. Anyway, this show, like I said, it's like moments and lines from the Ron Howard movie, but like just sort of all mixed up. But it's like, you know, they got fake Jeffrey Tambor, who is hopefully not the creep that the real one is. They got fake Christine Baranski and the Grinch is about. And but it's like the Grinch starts stealing things, but then that's when Cindy Lou Who goes to him and invites him to be the holiday cheermeister. It's like, it's very weird how they're doing moments from the movie, but and like all the daytime shows are operating from the premise that the story already happened. The Grinch is just a friend of ours now.
Yeah.
Like even the welcoming committee one talks about how much we like the Grinch now. And this one is, I don't know if they're just doing a reenactment society or if this is supposed to be the prequel. I don't know. But the other thing that was weird to me, and probably not to most people watching, and I posted about this on the socials, the song leading up to the beginning of the show is Big Bad Voodoo Daddy's Christmas is Starting Now. And to everyone else, it's probably just like, you know, a rockin' Christmas song, you know, they've probably heard it. It's probably gotten radio play. It's probably like, oh yeah, rockin' Christmas song. It's only weird because that song is from the Phineas and Ferb Christmas special, an extremely Disney song in this Universal show.
Yeah.
But, you know, at least Dan Povenmire, Martin Olson, and Danny Jacob got royalties for this show.
Really? That's the true meaning of Christmas right there.
Yeah. So that was Universal this year. Disneyland Park.
Yeah, which we did in a slightly chaotic way. So
yes, well, I have had various trips to the Disneyland Resort over this past month. I went once intending to be a solo trip, but then I found out Zach and Cassie were there with their friend Rachel, so I hung out with them. Then we went once because you did not renew your Magic Key. We went where like you just hung out at Grand Californian, and I ran in and got some food from the tasting card and brought it out, and we tried it together. And we'll get to that later. Yeah. And then I went yesterday, as we're recording this. I went with my sister Lizzie, who, as we have mentioned, is in town.
Yes.
And Ian gave her a comp. We went primarily because she had yet to ride Rise of the Resistance.
Or see Avengers Campus, right?
Or see Avengers Campus, but Rise was the real priority.
No, of course.
Avengers Campus, I would have been
Your sis, the Star Wars nerd, so like, yeah.
Well, Avengers Campus, I would have been like, oh yeah, it's pretty neat. You should see it sometime. But Rise of the Resistance, I was like, you need to ride this.
This is required.
But we'll get to that later. We'll get to that later. So like I said, I met up with Zach and Cassie and their friend Rachel that first day I went. And, you know, as I'm coordinating, as they're texting me like, hey, we're in the park. And then they text me, do you want to do a lightning lane for Smuggler's Run? Mm-hmm. Now, I have said in the past that I am not paying money for Lightning Lane until I absolutely have to. Or until the group I'm with really wants to do it. And in this case, the group I was with wanted to do it. So I was like, fine, I will pay the $20-$25, whatever it is, for Lightning Lane and figure it out. And now I am reviewing the Lightning Lane experience in my capacity as a theme park reviewer.
Please go for it.
I can say on this day, it ended up not being worth the money.
I am still of the belief the only thing it's worth for is Rise of the Resistance, and that's really it.
I was tempted to do it for Rise of the Resistance, but then we just ended up doing standby for Rise of the Resistance that day, and it was fine. I was also tempted to do it for Rise, or I wasn't tempted. I was presenting to Lizzie the option, and I'll get to the day with Lizzie in a bit.
Yeah,
I was presenting the option of doing it for Rise of the Resistance, saying it will only cost $50 for the two of us, but we ended up being able to do standby.
I just remember. Do you remember that one time we were waiting in line, and like I was trying to convince other people to buy access to Lightning Lanes so that we could get up faster in the line?
That's right. That was the one time we ever rope dropped Rise of the Resistance.
Yeah.
Like shortly after they got rid of the virtual boarding groups.
Yeah.
Shortly after that, we rope dropped it, and it's like the longest line at rope drop. and you were telling people ahead of you, oh yeah, it's only $25 per person. You were
I was selling it hard.
selling it hard so that they would get out of line and we can move up faster.
And I think we convinced one family to do it, and then everybody else was like, no.
But doing Lightning Lane in general, we used it for Falcon, and it was like I could get basically an immediate turnaround time for Falcon. Like it was like within the next, I could get one for the next 10 minutes. So that was nice. But then the actual Lightning Lane return line for Falcon was pretty slow. I don't think it was quite as slow as waiting in the standby queue would have been, but it was still slower than a Lightning Lane, than a Fast Pass return should be.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing Falcon had broken down earlier, and a lot of people were, doing their, because that's the big risk about doing it for Rise of the Resistance, is because that ride gets so much downtime, you're going to get a lot of people who are given Lightning Lanes, and if they're all returning at the same moment, the Lightning Lane return will be slow.
Yeah.
But that's neither here nor there for this story. But I have Lightning Lane now, and I can do it all day for things that aren't Smuggler's Run or Spider-Man. So I'm like, okay, I'll make a reservation. At this point, I had not done Haunted Mansion Holiday yet. And I was like, I need to do that. I didn't get around to it during October. I need to do it before the season's done. So I made a reservation for Haunted Mansion Holiday, and it was for 9 p.m. or something. Lot slower. That one is, it's popular. It works up. But then later, when I'm with Zach and Cassie and Rachel, we run into a friend of Cassie's who works Indy, and she gives all of us 6 free Lightning Lanes for anything that's not Rise or Spider-Man. So we end up using that for Mansion instead, and I think we use it for 2 or 3 other things. We don't use up all 6. But so basically what I ended up paying $25 for was an average length wait for Millennium Falcon, which is kind of again, the thing about Fast Passes being free is that they were low risk.
Yeah.
But what you gonna do?
No, exactly.
I'll just talk now about the day I went with Lizzie. Yeah, Ian got us the comp. Thank you, Ian. But the only reservation I could get for my pass was for DCA. So we had to start with DCA and then do Disneyland later, even though the point of the day was Rise of the Resistance. But that ended up being the better way to do it, because then she could do Spider-Man first and be like, that was neat, and not have Spider-Man need to follow Rise of the Resistance.
I feel like that is the correct order, especially if somebody's doing both for the first time. You need to, Web Slingers has low expectations. I think I've made it clear I do not care for Web Slingers, but it's kind of good to go in with low expectations, just so that when you hit Rise, it gets out of the park,
I like Web Slingers a little more every time I ride it, but it's still not great.
I don't care for a ride that gives me carpal tunnel.
That's fair. But anyway, back to holiday specifically the DCA Festival of Holidays foods. We were talking about how a lot of the things on the menu this year weren't disappointing things or bad sounding things, but they were things that in other years would have been our if we have tabs left choices.
Yeah.
They were things that weren't priorities for us.
Yeah.
But we got 3 items together that I brought back to you to Grand Californian. The first was the one thing on the list that had me really going, oh, I want to know what that's like. And that was the Everything Bagel and Lox Nachos.
Yes.
Which you described as a weird poke bowl.
Yeah.
But I dug this.
No, I liked it too. It was the fish was perfectly fishy. The chips were great.
You were saying that the fish was fresher than you expected it to be.
Yes, which was nice because usually when I think lox, normally I think of it like a very smoked fish.
Yeah, of course.
And it felt like this was clearly because we've talked about how a lot of the stuff gets prepared to be used in multiple different stations over there. They're not going to smoke a bunch of salmon just for this thing specifically.
Right.
They're going to do fresh. But it was really good.
That's why there's so many mac and cheese options.
Seriously, yeah. I am sometimes not a big fan of cream cheese on my stuff just because of texture related stuff, but it worked out really well. The way that the cream cheese was kind of popped on here was nice.
I
wouldn't call it a proper schmear, but it definitely worked out nicely.
Yeah. My big thing was the seasoning on it tasted like a kitchen that was trying to be Cantor's but couldn't quite get there.
Yeah.
But it was
They had one kid who interned there back in 2016. I was like, all right.
It's not even quite at the hat quality.
Yeah.
But I like a good bagel chip. It's been ages since I've had a bagel chip.
Yeah.
And it's like...
We can pick some up at Trader Joe's next time.
We could. There's nothing stopping us. But it's like, I had the thought in college, like, speaking of other things I consumed during this holiday season, I had the thought in college that it's like, I might never eat applesauce again. Because I'm never going to go out of my way for apple. I'm not going to buy applesauce. And when you're an adult, you're rarely in context where applesauce is being served.
And weirdly, in a way, you were correct. So,
but then I think I've had like applesauce 3 times since then, not counting the applesauce that was on the ice cream in the Luigi drink.
True.
But it was just a thought of like, I'm not upset about this. I'm just like, it's weird to think that my applesauce days might be behind me. And it's the same thing with bagel chips. It's like I just never think to buy them for myself.
No, absolutely.
And then finally we had the churro toffee coffee cold brew latte.
Which I think we had talked about maybe getting.
We had talked about it, but we did not spring for it. There's also an alcoholic version of this, but we weren't even going to touch that. But, like, we have had such mixed results with, like, the specialty cold brews.
Yeah.
And it's like, the cold brew straight up that Disney uses is not
terrible.
Good. It's not good. But, like, sometimes... But, like, we had last year for Christmas in Disneyland Park, there was that one with the honey foam topping.
That was the Hungry Bear one, right?
Yeah.
That was really nice.
And the topping on that was so delicious that it was worth everything else. But then we had, I don't even remember what it was that we had during Food and Wine this year, what the cold brew was, that you were like, it's whatever. And as soon as we stopped recording, you were like, I fucking hate this.
I feel like it was sort of like a rice pudding or a horchata or something like that.
It might have been the horchata. I don't remember. You can listen back to our springtime theme park festival episode. But this churro toffee coffee cold brew latte, the topping was, of course, top notch. This was the one out of all the cold brews I've had where the flavor mixed in with the cold brew the best. At least better than it usually does with the Disneyland cold brew. I was like, it doesn't just feel like bitter cold brew is on top of this flavor gunk. It's like, this, like, I'm tasting the flavor. And yes, it's still cold brew, but the flavor is coming in strong enough that I'm enjoying it. So I think this was solid as these cold brews go. But, cold brew, even if it tasted better, it's still, like, too much for me most of the time. So Lizzie had most of that. I just, like, picked at the topping. Finally, the moment you've all been waiting for. I teased this last week. This was the holiday season of popping a lot of theme park holiday cherries for me. Or popping cranberries, I guess. This was, because again, this was the first year I watched the Grinchmas shows. This was the first year I watched The Gift of the Magi at Knott's. And this was the first year I properly did Six Flags Magic Mountain Holiday in the Park. Except I kind of didn't properly do it. But no, I've never really done Holiday in the Park before. I've been there while the decor was up. Like, I've been in Six Flags shortly after Halloween when they start to put the Christmas decoration up. And I've been there shortly after New Year's when the decorations are still up, but they're not doing Holiday in the Park anymore. I've never been there for the festivities themselves, other than the drive-through version in 2020 that we did together, which is still the only time you've been to Magic Mountain.
Yes.
And with good reason. But I enjoyed that drive-through experience, partly just because it was so surreal, and also because it, like, cost almost no money to do.
Yeah.
But also just because it was like doing Six Flags but not having to trudge through the hills, like just getting to, and it was like cool to see the lights from the car. Like, it was a neat way of doing it. But also in the grand tradition of my favorite podcast being disappointed by Six Flags at their best because they've never experienced Six Flags at their baseline. I remember on Freedom, they talked about doing the Six Flags drive-through Holiday in the Park together. And Paul F. Tompkins was complaining about how many paths with just, like, no lights there were, like how many stretches with nothing there was.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm like, wow, this is so much more than Six Flags usually does that thing. But Paul F. Tompkins was complaining about how little there was. And Scott was giving the excuse that, like, they probably, COVID hit hard. They didn't really have all their resources or whatever. They probably, whatever. And Paul, I believe, said that it's like, okay, then they should have put a sign at the entrance that said, "We did what we could."
We tried our best.
And it's like, frankly, I just think year-round Six Flags should have a sign in front that says we did what we could. But yeah, since I enjoyed both the drive-thru holiday in the park and I enjoyed Fright Fest this year, like Fright Fest surprised me with how good it was, again, by Six Flags standards. I went in with higher expectations than usual, but Six Flags is back to its regular self.
Oh, no.
Well, for the sake of content, I am happy.
Oh, okay, true. Well, hey.
For the sake, like, while I was experiencing it, I was just laughing to myself, this is going to make good content. While I was experiencing it, I was like, I couldn't even be disappointed. I was just like, why did I ever have faith in you, Magic Mountain? I'm actually relieved that Magic Mountain still sucks overall, because it would have been annoying if they were really stepping up their game right before I put out a Blitz California about how much Six Flags sucks. But now, also, I am willing to give Magic Mountain a little benefit of the doubt. I did go on a Thursday.
Okay.
So a lot of the things I'm about to describe, a lot of what happened probably was not the case on the actual weekends.
Of course.
But we will get to that as we continue. So Six Flags, every land is kind of renamed, but also they barely have lands to begin with. And a lot of the renamed lands, they don't really have anything that indicates what the new name is. So, for instance, on the map, it'll say, like, Holly Rock, located in the Underground. The North Pole, located in Whistle Stop Park. Holiday Square, located in the Six Flags Plaza. Peppermint Path, located in Rapids Camp Crossing. Polar Bear Pass, located in Golden Bear Plaza, which was a name I had literally never heard before, but that's part of the High Sierra territory. Gleam Punk District, located in the Scream Punk District.
Naturally.
Arctic Alley, located near Viper. The area doesn't even have a land. Jingle Bell Way, located in DC Universe. Glacier Point, located in Metropolis. And Snowy Nights, located in the Full Throttle Plaza. I would say about a third of those actually had signage with those names. But they all had some level of decor. Not a lot of decor, but about as much as the scare zones had. So I mostly did, as usual, holiday foods.
Naturally.
So first I go to the Plaza Cafe, you know, at the Six Flags Entry Plaza, and I look at the menu. There's an enchilada soup for about $8, and that sounds all right. So I order the enchilada soup. The guy asks if I have a food pass, and I'm thinking, oh, there's like a holiday tasting card. So he's like, oh, food pass. Is one available? And he's confused by my question, and I realize he's talking about, like, the all-year dining plan. And it's like, and, like, I have no interest in that. So I just buy the soup. It's a pretty small cup of soup, but it's a pretty good cup of soup. It's got chicken, beans, corn, peppers, and tortilla strips on top. My biggest criticism of it is there's way too much corn and too little chicken. But it made sense as a winter food. And, like, the chicken in it was good, like so much better than the so-called popcorn chicken at Universal.
Of course.
So yeah, I do my lap around the park, noticing the smattering of decorations. When I get to Rapids Camp Crossing, which is allegedly Peppermint Path, even though I see no signage calling it Peppermint Path, I see there's a sign for a s'more station, and there's like a little wooden fenced off area that seems like a big crate you can get in that's covered in a wet tarp.
Yeah.
So I assume that's covering the fire pit for the s'more station that will maybe be available sometime. There's also a banner that says Holiday Market, which is over the path of shuttered carnival games that are always there. So I don't know what the Holiday Market elements were.
Absolutely.
And then the restaurant there, Katie's Kettle, is rebranded for the season to Mrs. Claus's Kitchen. And I go in there, and I see on their menu that there are tasting cards for sale, despite the confused guy at Plaza Cafe. There are two options, a card that gives you 2 items plus a souvenir hot chocolate mug, or a card that gives you 6 items plus a souvenir hot chocolate mug. So I go with the 6er, because by this point I've looked online at the Holiday in the Park food items, and there are a lot of things on the menu around the park that look good to me, especially at Ace of Clubs, the barbecue place near Justice League, where they had done the Oktoberfest menu that I did not do anything with. But like among the items they have there for the holiday are barbecue cranberry ribs or brisket, honey sriracha wings, stuffed turkey pockets, loaded sweet potato fries, fried green beans. There's a lot there that sounds worth trying. So I pick up my tasting card, which is much smaller physically than the other parks cards, and it's not one of the ones with tabs. It's just with like hole punches. But no big deal. I make my way around. I go past Holly Rock, and I make my way to the Metropolis area to Glacier Point, and I get to Ace of Clubs, ready to try any one of these delicious sounding foods. And the only downside is they were closed.
Oh, no.
And it didn't look like they were going to open anytime soon. I looked at the map online. This was the restaurant that had the most holiday food items not open today.
That's a bummer.
I decide, well, I'm here. I might as well ride Justice League. It, too, is closed. But the team member standing in front of it indicates that it'll be up and running again at some point. It's just temporarily down, so whatever. I head over toward DC Universe.
And that's also closed.
Because I still haven't ridden the new Wonder Woman coaster. I get there and it's closed. Again, just down temporarily, but I'm not feeling like waiting around.
I'm sensing a theme here.
So I head down to the Scream Punk District, which again, Gleam Punk District for the holidays. I'm thinking like, okay, my favorite coaster here is Twisted Colossus. I'll give it a ride. It's down. I have never seen this many rides down at the same time at this park. But again, it's comforting to know that Six Flags hasn't actually become good. So I make my way towards Food Etc. in the area formerly known as Pirates Cove that I don't think has a name anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get to Food Etc., which thankfully is open. And so, okay, all the food places around the park that have tasting card options have these like stand up signs out front that say like holiday in the park, light up your taste buds this way, and there's an arrow pointing to the restaurant. But whoever set up the sign outside Food Etc. had it pointing the wrong way, had it pointing away from the restaurant, so A+ worked there. So I get a tamale from Food Etc., the first thing I actually order with the tasting card on almost the exact opposite side of the park as I got the tasting card.
Of course.
The cashier had to like go in the back and find the hole punch to use on the tasting card. But I have the tamale and it sucks. Probably the worst tamale I've ever tasted in my entire life. The spices in it tasted like American mustard. It tastes like they marinated this thing in just like French's. It's so awful. The chicken was tough and stringy. I hated it. I threw most of it away. So far this tasting card has been a wash.
Yeah.
But the day's not over yet. I continue to lap the park. I head to Whistle Stop Park, which is now the North Pole, and theoretically it has like make crafts with Mrs. Claus and stuff. And I see the tables for the crafts, but nobody's there. It looks like the train ride is running, but I can't really tell. And it doesn't really look like it's like the North Pole Express now, but it doesn't look like they actually did anything to change the train ride. It doesn't look like they've even put much decor along the path. This is the train ride that was built to be Thomas the Tank Engine and then repainted when they lost that license. And it's a nothing little train ride that goes in a circle. So I don't bother riding it. I loop around past Bugs Bunny World, and I see, fascinatingly enough, at least fascinating to me and probably to no one else. So there's a little house in Bugs Bunny World, near the front of Bugs Bunny World, right across from the Golden Bear Theater, the area that is apparently known as Golden Bear Plaza, even though I've literally never seen that used to describe it. There's a little house there that used to be Granny's house on the side that faces Bugs Bunny World. But for the first couple of years I was coming here, the front was the entrance to something called My Furry Friends, which from like the signage and the description seemed to be an off-brand Build-A-Bear, but I literally never saw this place open. And then for a few years, the front had just had a Holiday in the Park sign on it, and I guess it was like the holiday tribute store, and I very rarely saw it open. On this day, the front was an actual on-brand Build-A-Bear workshop.
Oh, wild.
That is now at Six Flags, apparently, and it was open.
Amazing.
One of the very few things that was open today was this building that traditionally has never been open, and it's a Build-A-Bear now. It was the smallest Build-A-Bear I've ever seen, much smaller than the one we have at Knott's Marketplace or the one downtown Disney used to have. But this is the first time I specifically remember seeing this building be an actual thing. And now it's the thing it used to be a ripoff of. Mm-hmm. And I'm seeing this during the season it used to be a store for. Mm-hmm. That is interesting to nobody but me, but that's the kind of weird brain connection that is very interesting to me.
Of course.
So I loop back around to the front of the park. I see on the guide that the mac and cheese place across from Full Throttle has some things that look good. They've got like Western brisket loaded mac, Fiesta pulled pork loaded mac, chicken ranch loaded mac. I head there. They have one of those signs pointing to it. The menus are all lit up. Nobody's there. The mac and cheese place seems to be closed, but it seems to be advertising as if it's open. At least don't put the sign out.
No.
And also, Full Throttle is down. I've officially seen more closed rides than open rides at this point, because I forgot to mention earlier, I had made a detour up Samurai Summit to see if they had any Christmas decor up there. Not only was there no decor, but when I went up there, both of its rides were down. Mm-hmm. Imagine walking up that steep-ass mountain just for nothing.
Yeah.
Good God. So now I've lapped the entire park, and I've used exactly one tab, plus I've paid $8 for soup. But I look at a wait times board, and they say that Wonder Woman and Colossus are up and running again. So I'm like, okay, I'll lap one more time, get more food at the places I know were open, and hopefully at least get to ride Wonder Woman. Go back to Katie's Kettle, Mrs. Claus's Kitchen. I order 2 items from them. The leftover turkey slider, again, leftover holiday meal is a big theme, and the sweet potato fries. The cashier tells me the sweet potato fries are made to order, so they'll be like 8 minutes or something. I see there's already a serving of sweet potato fries on the handoff counter from the kitchen. Who knows how long it's been sitting there. But I'm okay waiting for the fresh ones. You know, I want to have them at their best. So I say that's fine. I get my slider, wait around for my fries. And at some point, the cashier I was dealing with leaves. And after several minutes, there's another cashier who sees the fries that were already there when I got there and hands those fries to me. So I waited like 6 minutes for old fries, but I wasn't going to complain because I don't like bothering team members, and I was also grateful for the much funnier narrative.
Yeah.
I loop around through the underground, back to Metropolis. I see Ace of Clubs is still closed, but I see guests. I see the Wonder Woman track. Like, I see guests are on Wonder Woman. It's running, and I'm like, good sign. But I also see that Justice League is now open, so sure, might as well ride the one dark ride here. I come in, and they're not doing the pre-show videos. The screens aren't even turned on, and the cyborg animatronic isn't even moving, not like doing the idle animation he was doing when they first reopened with COVID restrictions. And not only are they not doing the pre-show, but apparently the ride isn't in 3D anymore. There's no glasses. The screens are just in 2D, which is interesting to me. Now, of course, in that classic Podcast The Ride episode, when Mike Carlson and Anthony Gio rode this, they were never given 3D glasses, and they found out they found out like a minute into the ride, oh, everyone else has 3D glasses and we're supposed to. That's why the screens look so blurry. So if they had gone on this day, they would not have blurry screens. I'm not saying I miss the 3D. The one element that not having the 3D kind of ruins is like the lasers no longer really look like they're coming from your gun. The lasers just kind of look weirdly. It's much harder to track which laser beams you're shooting. And personally, if I was going to drop an element to this ride, I would have dropped the interactive element first because like this ride is, busy.
Yeah.
But then I'm also just wondering, is the reason they're not doing the pre-shows is because the pre-shows reference the 3D glasses and they've got to like change the pre-shows, but they haven't. I don't know. But then we go through, and at the end, when it's supposed to show your score with your picture, it shows an empty car and the scores are 0. So something was mistimed on the computer.
Yep.
But I head back to DC Universe, and apparently in the time I was on Justice League, which was a walk-on, mind you, in the time I was on Justice League, Wonder Woman went down again. I say to the team member out front, like, I saw it working 5 minutes ago, but I should have expected this. And he's just got this world-weary tone, like, yeah, pretty much. Welcome to Six Flags. I'm pretty sure this was the first employee I've ever encountered at Six Flags with self-awareness. Most of the Six Flags employees are poor teens who are doing their best but are way over their head. This guy, I don't know if he was in his 30s, but he was at least in his 20s, and he was over this shit.
Clearly a transfer in from a different Six Flags park just for the amount of self-awareness he had.
Or someone who used to work at a real park.
Yeah. Somebody is still bitter that they did not pass their Adventureland audition.
Yeah. So now it's like 4 p.m. and I opt out of staying until sunset to see like the Christmas lights and stuff because I can't imagine they're that different than when we saw them from our car 2 years ago.
No, for sure.
And I no longer have faith that they'll even turn on all the lights tonight. So I head down, like, I'm doing this while you're at work. Like, I dropped you off at work and I'm up here. So then I just go down to City Walk until you're done with work.
Yeah.
But it's like, it had become abundantly clear as I was exploring the park. Like, all the rides being down, that's just unfortunate. Like, all the rides having malfunctions and everything. That just tells me that they are understaffed in the maintenance department. But with like things like the holiday marketplace being nothing and like the s'more stations being nothing and the craft station at Whistle Stop being nothing, it's becoming abundantly clear that at best this stuff is happening on weekends, which fair enough. But all I could find on the website about Holiday in the Park schedule was quote unquote select days and nights.
Of course.
And I could find no indication about which days and nights were the select days and nights. Like, I couldn't even find a schedule calendar of, like, this is when these are the days we're doing. Like, Ghost Town Alive is select days through these dates. And most of the summer, it's every day. And then the last couple of weeks, it's just weekends. But if you go to the Knott's entertainment calendar, it will tell you if Ghost Town Alive is happening on a day or not. So I feel like they should have posted it somewhere, which days Holiday in the Park stuff isn't happening, unless they're still counting this as Holiday in the Park happening. Like, unless by honoring the tasting card, they technically consider that to be doing Holiday in the Park today, even if they're only doing like an eighth of what they advertise and only like half of the tasting card is available.
No, absolutely.
It's just so baffling.
Yeah.
So I'm like, there's a second where I think, should I come back on a weekend to see it at its full glory? But no. I get very few weekend days off.
Yeah.
I'm not going to waste one on Magic Mountain Holiday in the Park. It's like, there's also no way that even in its full glory, Holiday in the Park is more than just fine.
No, for sure.
So, maybe some of those things do start, maybe like Holiday in the Park is mostly a nighttime thing, and some of those other things will start happening at night, but I don't feel like waiting an hour for the sun to set to find out.
No.
So I leave laughing to myself that Six Flags is back to its normal self. For now, this was my busiest theme park holiday season yet. Not just because I'm working at a theme park, but because I did a lot more than I usually do.
Yeah, you did.
And maybe next year I'll make an effort to do Six Flags on a weekend and give it a fair shake. Maybe. But we'll see how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
In the meantime, thank you all for joining us for another year of our self-indulgent nonsense.
Y'all are the best.
And let us know what you would like to hear from us in the new year.
Yes, please.
Everyone, have a wonderful rest of your holiday season. Have a happy new year. And until February, this has been At Home with the Dogganses.
Later days, y'all.
Later days.